My name is Jing Li, and I'm here with my dad, Tien Li, and we're very honored to be invited to do this. And thanks to Mr. Katz for inviting us. And I just wanted to, I guess, say a little bit about myself. I'm a former student of Paul Katz, and I was, I guess, recently inspired by a conversation I had with my dad about all of the things that have been happening in the Asian American community, and we never really spoke about it before. And so I had a long conversation with him and learned a lot more about his background and a lot of things that I didn't know and stories that I didn't know, and where he came from. And so it was very inspiring, and I feel like it should be shared with the rest of the world. So here's my dad, Tien Li.
Hi, my name is Tien Li, and I'm a cellist, and graduated early in early 80s, and played the cello throughout my life. And so I come from China. I was born in China and grew up in Beijing. So I come to the United States in early 80s. By exactly, it was January 8th, 1981. And this is a quite experience for me to have this chance to talk very briefly, as brief as I can, but it was still a lot of time to cover. So I tried to be more quick and as quick as possible. So by any means, in America and China was in the two extreme ends, and politically and culturally. And by political sense, in the late of 70s, the last century, in the early 80s, and the world represented by two political things. And one is the communism, and the other one is capitalism. So of course, China was on the side of communism, and America was one of the leading nation of capitalism. And by the other point, it was traditionally by the cultural, sense, and Chinese was sort of like representing Eastern culture, and Americans more representing Western culture. And in China culture, the more emphasized on authoritative and collectivization, like they're more on the group of the thinking. But in American, it was more emphasizing on the freedom, democracy, and the individualism. So before we come to United States, I did travel to some Eastern European countries and Eastern Bloc countries, and many of them. But later, that's in the early 1970s, and later, and that was still in Mao's years. And we traveled to like some of Western countries like Austria and West Germany during the time Germany was still divided. Those are the touring performances. So those touring was very tight, controlled by the central power. So you don't have much contact with the local people. So it pretty much from hotel to the theater or the concert hall. So except that couple of prearranged visits, like I remember went to Schönbrunn Palace and the Golden Music Hall in Vienna. So, and when we decided to go to the United States to study, that was quite big decision, because they were faced a lot of challenges and face an entire unknown world to us. And it's sort of like from the one end to the other end of the world. So that's needed tremendous courage and brave. So it was a very interesting the process when we applied for the American universities. So when we decided that, and we did not have any personal tie with U.S. and we don't have relatives and so on. So Jen, my wife Jen, and I, we have a pretty similar path of our early life, and we knew each other in our childhood, and we went to some kind of Russian style music, elementary school and a boarding school, concentrate on music study. And during the time, I knew some Russian cellists like Shafran Kunusevsky and Rostropovich, but not much. And almost none of Western contemporary cellists. So the knowledge was very limited. And of course, we know earlier like Paul Casals, but not any current in the Western in the cellist. And after Mao died, and we had a trip, and Jen and I were going to play a recital in Tianjin Conservatory. Tianjin is a city pretty close to Beijing, and when we doing the recital, we knew we knew a person there and who is a cello faculty in the conservatory, and she has an aunt who's a Chinese American. In the early years, she came to United States to study cello. Actually, then after graduation, she couldn't find any job because the market was so difficult for the musicians. So later, she turned to compare literature, and finally got doctorate degree study. No, actually teaching. After graduation, she got a job at teaching at the University of Minnesota. So my colleague in Tianjin Conservatory introduced us to meet her aunt. And we met her aunt in Beijing during the time she was like an exchange scholar with Beijing University. And so she was temporarily staying in Beijing. And we met her once. That was the only occasion we met her. And I think her first impression to us, it was a little worried about our language abilities to study abroad. So showing very untrustful feelings to us in how to comprehending the studies, with this poor level of the English level. But anyway, she, even though she still talked through to us about whatever she knows, and she told us that there was a very famous Hungarian-born American cellist named Janos Starker, and teaching in Indiana University School of Music. And she also mentioned in University of Minnesota also has a pretty good music school. On the way back, go through the hotel lobby, she quickly pick up two like a postcard and very quick write down the Office of Admissions and the School of Music, Minnesota University, Minneapolis. And the other postcard was the Office of Admissions and in the School of Music, Indiana University, Bloomington, Indiana. That's it. And there's no person's name. And that's where we started. And we wrote the letter to those two universities. And with that guess, it's a very poor English there. But anyway, we just addressed the letter to Office of the Admissions, and Minnesota University and Indiana University. Before that, we know, and we have to record our performances. Otherwise, they won't. No way to recognize that this is a real music student. So we spend quite time to practice daily, prepare a long list of the repertoire. And I remember that I did I did record like a Bach Ensemble Suite in number 5 in C minor, B minor Concerto of Dvorak, and Rococo theme in a variation by Tchaikovsky, a Pagliani Sonata by Schubert, and a bunch of music pieces such as the Intermezzo by by Tchaikovsky, Swan by Saint-Saëns, Ave Maria by Schubert, Romance by Debussy, Schedule, etc. Those pieces. And then later we actually we record those pieces, some small music pieces in Hong Kong Audio Productions Incorporate, and when we live in China past Hong Kong. The two cassette cello music tapes was released and published in 1981. The chance we got this recording contract was pretty fascinating as well, and it was by coincidence. And after Mao's death, and Jan and I, we went to Guangzhou to try to make a music cassette tape, and in the local recording studios. And during the time, the head of this Hong Kong, audio production incorporated, the company head, and he was in Guangzhou as well, and doing some kind of joint business work or conference with the local studios. And he heard a part of our recording, but unfortunately, during the process, my cello was hit down by a worker who's tried to place the microphone for us, and the bridge was broken, and I couldn't make it repair locally. So finally, we had to go back to Beijing, and he approaching to us and talk to us, offer us an opportunity to record our music in his studio in Hong Kong, if we will pass Hong Kong. Of course, during the time, there was no direct flight between China and the United States. So anyway, we'll have to pass Hong Kong to take, fly from Hong Kong. So we're so happy to have that chance to make a recording in the Hong Kong.
Dad?
Yes.
I'm wondering how, can you tell the story about how, so you applied to Indiana University, and then how did they know who you were?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to talk just right now. So, okay. And after we get back to Beijing, we send those two tapes to those two universities, and after that, it was a long period of the waiting. During that time, there's no the internet, so no cell phone, so there's nothing. We did not hear anything come back for about more than half a year. And that was a difficulty, that was a difficulty to waiting. And so in one of the morning, I was pretty surprised that I heard a loud shot on the hallway and said, "李天生电话," which means telephone, 天生, and we don't have personal phone. So there were a phone in the middle of the hallway, and we live in the 4th floor of the building. And I heard that call, so I went to answer the phone call, and that was an old man's voice, and it's in Chinese. He would say, "你是李天生吗?" And that was mean, "Are you Tien and Jing Li?" And I said yes. And so the sounds, and obviously this is not the local guy. This is come from different world. I mean, he speaks Chinese, but it's not local dialect. And so he said later, and he said he's a professor of law, and he's the head of East Asia Studies in Indiana University. He has some kind of conference in Beijing during that time. But School of Music, and to learn about his trip, so ask him to interview us. So he was asking, "Well, do you have time now?" And that was sort of a surprise. I said yes. And so, but where are you? And so where are you staying? And he said, "I'm in the Youyi Bingguan," which means the Friendship Hotel. That was in the other end of the city of Beijing, and we're in very south part of the Beijing. So, but anyway, Jan and I was take a public bus, and that was quite time, right? And go to the Friendship Hotel. And after we get there, we saw the big gate, and it was guarded. And the old man standing outside of the gate and approaching to him and said, "Are you Professor Law?" And he said, "Yes." So I thought, we're going to be invited into his room to have some kind of the interview. But instead of, he was asking, "Where is your place?" And I said, "Our place was the far end, the other end of the city." And he said, "Let's go to your place." And that was a surprise to us. But anyway, he ordered a taxi, and we all right to our place, apartment. Actually, it was not an apartment; it was just a single room in an office building. So our room was too tiny, so and barely can sit more than 5 or 4 people. But anyway, he sat down and pulled out a very tiny recorder and the recording machine, and we never seen that small things before. And he said, "Where's your instrument?" And so we live in 4th floor. There were two end of the two side of the hallway. They have 2 big rehearsal house. So we went to rehearsal hall. I played some cello music. Jen played some piano music, and he recorded the whole thing. And after that, in the atmosphere of talking getting more casual and comfort, he started talking something about like introduced about the Indiana University. He said the school of music of the Indiana University was so good and ranking the #1 in public universities in United States for a consecutive 10 years. And also he's very proud of his son was a part of viola students in school of music. So he left with a big hope for us. And then that's after he left, that was another long period of difficulty, exhausting waiting. And there was no any news, no any answer from Indiana University after about 3 months or even more. And then I received a phone call and by a foreigner, and because she wasn't speaking Chinese, she speak English, but I barely understand what she's talking. She said, "I'm come from Minnesota University," and because there's a delegation come to visit China during the time, and including some commercial, economic development, educational, and all those delegates from different part of the government. She actually was a part of university, and she said that School of Music asked her to interview us. So we went to their hotel a couple of days after the phone call. This time there's no recordings. There were a group of the people talk with us, and that was a difficult to talk. There was really poor English, and we couldn't really understand everything what they're talking, but barely I understand what they're saying. They said that they would like to invite us to study in Minnesota University, but they don't have enough of fund for the 1980-1981 academic year, because that was already, one semester almost passed. So they said that they only have money and for one person, and they come first. So that the chance given to me, and it said that you can come first and try to catch this spring semester, and but the Jan cannot go this time. But they guarantee said the Jan will go there and in the very next academic year. And the actually was a great news, because they said that they were offer the fee remission scholarship from the university, and also give some living expenses. I remember that was close to like $12,000. That was like a huge amount of money in that time. So to go to study in the United States was not only a dream, but more close to reality during that time. So soon after they left, and we received the IAP 64, which is for applying the J1 student visa. So, and after we received that from University of Minnesota, we started another long course of waiting, and also applying and waiting for Chinese passport. During the time, the private citizen in China, it doesn't hold their own passport, and no one hold their own passport. If you want to go abroad, you have to apply the passport from very bottom up. For instance, in my circumstance, and I have to apply my passport from the symphony orchestra I was playing, and I was associated with the ballet, the theater, and so they got this level and the approval. Then they send to the theater like a leadership or whatever they call, and they approval. Then they send the Department of the Culture of the government, which they go through another long course of the many layers of bureaucratic protocols. And until you get your passport, it takes over 8 months of the period, and to get your passport. I remember I received my passport on the 13th of December of 1980. So before we received our passport, our situation of the application has some big change, and because during the time, finally we received a letter from a distinguished professor, Janos Starker from Indiana University, and that was sounds like his letter sounds like an order. I mean, I still remember the content, and pretty much I can memorize the content of his letter. The letter says, "Tien Sheng, you should come to Indiana University, Bloomington campus, before spring semester of 1980 and 1981 academic year. Study with Professor Suzumi for a semester, because I'm currently in sabbatical leave for a year. Then you start in my studio from September of 1981 as a special student." So that's the letter. And the news come too sudden and too good to believe. So, and the best of all is the Indiana University School of Music not only offer one scholarship for me, and also both of us, Jen and me, and with the fee remission scholarship, and also the fellowship from covered by a Star Foundation, which was headed by the person, Professor Lo, who interviewed us, and he's the head of East Asia Studies in University. So the whole thing seems like so bright, and we are so fortunate. So we're thrilled, and we changed our application for the passport, because originally we applied to go to Minnesota University. Then we changed it to go to the Indiana University. So we got our passport in December 13 of 1980. And I remember that was a Saturday. Then we went to American liaison office, because during the time there was no formal diplomatic relation between China and the United States. So we went to their liaison office and to apply visa. When I waiting for the visa application officer, we're in the waiting room, and I heard someone call my name, and I was in Chinese, and fairly good Chinese actually, and I was wondering who can spell my name pretty correctly, and approaching to the counter, and there was a American who was not Asian, and he started to interview me, and he told me that, and the conversation was pretty casual, and he speaks Chinese. It's very good Chinese. He said he saw our application is go to IU Bloomington. He said he studied in Bloomington. He said he was a student in IU East Asia Studies, and so where he learned, his English. He is a Chinese. So then he very quick in going through my application papers, and in the meantime he find out that my wife Jen is also apply for the visa. So he was asking, where's she? I said she's in the waiting room. So and he said, call her Jing. So Jen joined with us, and the remaining of the interview was so friendly. It was like just like some kind of friendly conversation. So it was so easy. We got our visa.
Dad,
Yes.
can you skip ahead and talk about when you came to the US and you were in Bloomington, and I think you told me that Starker was on sabbatical that year, so you didn't start taking lessons with him, but you started with Tsuyoshi Tsutsumi, right?
Yeah, yes, that's part of after we arrived to Bloomington, but anyway, I'm just saying, that's why we passed we got our visa, we got the passport on 13th of December 1980, and the visa on the 15th, and we decided to leave on 17th. So that was really tight to get by train to
Fast.
Guangzhou. They crossed the border and to Hong Kong, because we tried to make those recording to get some money, to earn some money to pay our flight tickets, and the first moment when it arrived to the United States. And we were only offered like a 2 afternoon to use their studio. So that was really tight. It was like 2 hours music, like one cassette was Western music, one cassette Chinese music. So we got that and finished finally in the 26th, I believe, of December 1980. That was the day after Christmas. We crossed the bridge of Luohu, which is the border of Hong Kong and the mainland, and we left the mainland China, which we spent all our childhood and the part of our youth years there. And then after we got into the United States, that was a lot of stories that you just asking for, and I don't have enough time to go through all those the incidents. There were so many interesting stories, and time is so limited. There was a happy moment. There was it was surprise. There was shocking period. There was a sadness, disappointment, and embarrassing, and or shameful even sometimes. I just talk about the some of the couple of the example of the shameful. Mention some of those experience. For instance, like Jin just said, after we got in Bloomington campus, and I wasn't meet the Starker right away, and I was study with Tsutsumi for spring semester, and then during the summer, and there was a professor called Vrisla, I think he's playing in Baltimore Symphony as well, and take some teaching assignment during the summer. So I went through those two teachers. In the meantime, I met the music faculties like Dr. Wino and Gary Hoffman. But anyway, and there are a couple of incidents that happened. For instance, I remember once Dr. Wino and he's associate professor during the time, invited some of the students to come to her house to have a party. I think that was a spring, like an Easter holiday. And she was asking around all the students what kind of drink you want to drink, and everyone was like a Coke, Sprite, and Pepsi, and someone even ordered a beer. And when she was asking me, and I not quite familiar with all sorts of drinks, so I replied hot water. And I can remember that moment, and when she heard of my reply and stood there and for at least a couple seconds, then quick went back to pick up a glass and get some tap water, put on the microwave. So I thought after about that incident, after party, I thought the Dr. Wino and the later must be thinking about, what's the eccentric guy is this, eccentric guy come from? And another incident was once I was
I think people don't realize, like in China, you have to boil the water because you can't just drink from the tap. And so everybody drinks boiled water, and it's very typical to have hot water. Yeah, I think you should.
Another I can't forget about the incident. It was once I was asked to play for a social occasion. Uh, I thought it was a cello recital, but play some cello solo pieces for a social occasion, which is the governor of the Indiana state will be there. So during the time, and then I think there was the I fully understand the situation, but I think it was a cello solo concert. So it was actually was background music, just like a singing in the air. I mean, to make some appreciable smell. So, but I thought it was a concert. So, and there was a stage and the people sitting around the many tables and the eating, drinking, and very loud talking. It was quite noise when I was playing. So up to the break point of my patient, I standing up and approaching to the microphone and said, "Please quiet." I was immediately quieted down. The whole hall was quieted down. Everyone and was looked shocked and turned a face to me, and was just a significant long period of time. I was keep pretty quiet, just nobody talking. And after I made that announcement, they were listening to my playing. More longer time after that, more longer time after I stayed in the United States, I think back about that incident, more shameful I got. And everyone who joined that banquet on the way back were asking each other, what the hell is that guy and come from? I mean, they must really surprised why he can standing up to call for quiet down. So I hope Miss Pence won't heard about this story from his predecessor. Yeah.
Well, I remember when we were talking last night, you said that it's just a difference between like two cultures because what was customary here, like you hadn't had any experience with that, and so it was like a different world.
Yeah, there was so many custom and the how the people behaved and doing the social circumstance, but those was so many. There was just if you mention everything of that and we will have an endless discussion of that one, but and also and it was showed a very limited our education background and the knowledge for the Western music. For instance, I remember the ones and the one of the nearby symphony always come to IU campus to do the auditions for the orchestra recruitment. I remember once the Columbus Symphony, Columbus, Ohio, and they have a the offer audition in Bloomington campus. So I decided to try. So I went there and played a portion of the concerto. Then the guy handed me a paper and for sight reading. So I saw the sight reading. There's no tempo marking on that. It was the middle part of it. So and it was fairly easy. So I'm so confident I started to play. And just after several bars, the guy stopped me and said, "Do you know this piece?" I said, "No." And he said, "You played the totally wrong tempo." And I said, "There's no tempo marking." And he was smiles that everybody knows it. And later I find out that was the last moment of Mozart Symphony 41, the Jupiter, and that was cut off time. And was I counted. I played as I read that for 4/4 meter. So this is a relate to what our experience in the Western music in China during the time, and it was straight prohibited. And we stopped learning any Western music since the middle school, in the second grade of middle school. That was equivalent to the like a 6th or 7th grade in here. So was pretty early time we stopped to learn those. We never like a high school student here. They probably were just the music music students in the public schools, they probably went over those repertoire in by many times, when they were a student. So that was quite an experience. And so the audition ended, and no question when I did not get any assignment for that. So, so
do you feel like being from China affected your lessons? Like, I imagine you had to learn English really quickly, and Mr. Starker probably taught in English. So
actually,
was that
we had a pretty good communication with Mr. Starker, and he wasn't speak fast. And during the semester of spring, and Zuzumi is a Japanese, so he always write the Chinese character to me. So I don't have any problem to understand, and so during that time it's fairly easy. But the first semester, of course, was a difficulty, because we have to learn music in case you get a scholarship. We cannot just totally omit the music lessons. But in the meantime, the English department, according to our test, when we do the entrance, Michigan test, and they said that your English level is so poor, so you cannot get in any degree or special program. You have to full-timely learning English. So we were required by the university administration, you have to study the English first. But between negotiation, music school and the English department, finally made some kind of agreement. Said and they have to take the 12 credit hours for the music in case you get the scholarship. And in the meantime, English department can, put whatever they want on us to study English. So I remember the first semester, we were learning 4 courses, and that was representing like a 12 credit hours of English, and the 4 courses of music, that was representing another 12. 12 is the full-time, the standard for full-time students. So that was hard. I mean, fortunately, after first semester, the guy who is in charge of the English department, Dr. Beer, and called us to his office and said that you guys made a significant improvement during the semester. So I offer you a chance to just go to your degree program without any further studies. So that was great news for us. And so that was the first semester. Yeah.
So I think we've gotten a notice that it's about the halfway point, and we should take some questions. And there's a question from Paul Katz, who's saying, could you tell us about your lessons?
Yeah, there were so many memorable moments, and when I had a lesson with Janos, and he's very, sometimes he's very emotional. Most of the time, people think about Janos Starker, it was a very cold, very serious guy, and never really smile, or actually it's very easy to get along with, and he always talks some jokes, and offer some candies doing like a Halloween or any kind of thing. And it's sometimes very funny. I remember, and a couple of the incidents in the ones during the lesson, and he was sort of did not really listen to my playing, was thinking about something else. And after I stopped, he wasn't talking about whatever I was playing. He would start to talking his own experience. So I traveled to a lot of places in the world, and like Japan, I went there many times, but I never went to Fuji Mountain. I never go to some attractive spots. Always hotel to the concert hall. And it was sort of like there's some kind of the emotion going through had during the time. And also I remember sometimes he was come to me, said, do you know this word? And it was actually the word was sophisticated, but I did not fully understand that word during the time. But he said sophisticate, and he makes some hand gesture, which mean the people was like a whatever makeup, and try to be noble, pretty, and then he said that it's a human. We always pursue a higher level of goals. And he stood up and point of his pen said at the beginning you might just so happy with the pens, but later you want the better pens. And then after that you want a line. It was kneeling down and the point of his pen says that there's a line in the front and of your pen, so you want a more sophisticated. And so that's kind of a Starker. And sometimes it's very easy to get along. And like I remember he received the editors in the copy of a Canonic sonatas by Telemann, and he added that for before the publication. They sent the paper to him to finally edit it. So he handed and said, this is a very interesting thing. And what about which I read it? So we did the first piece and doing the lesson. So there were so many of those kind of moments, and it was hard to forget about it. And he told me I am the first Chinese student he ever taught. So I'm pretty proud of it. And yeah.
I know that most people are or were very afraid of him because he can be kind of stern and scary. But I also had a nice experience with him because he was always really nice to me, maybe because I was so young, or maybe because, I was like a grand student to him.
Yeah, because he told Jen, my wife, and said that Jing was the youngest student he was taking in 25 years. And so during the time you were not even, graduate from high school yet. You just got in high school.
Yeah. There's another question, let's see, from somebody that's asking me, what are some of your musical influences growing up and how did it change your view of the cello? Well, my musical influences were mainly from my parents. My dad is obviously a cellist and he was my first teacher. And my mom is a pianist and she also taught me some piano early on, but then I gave up the piano and I don't play anymore. And then I guess how it changes my view of the cello. I guess I've always been around the cello because it was always in my life. And I guess it was not necessarily expected, but it was definitely expected that I learn the cello, not necessarily that I go on to become a professional cellist. And that part was my own choice. And then because my dad was a student of Starker's, I feel like that is part of who I am in a way. And then I went back to go and study with him for many years. So I feel like that's part of where my foundation of cello playing comes from. There's another question about what have your routines been like during the pandemic? Dad?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, one of the big changes, I'm still teaching. I'm not retired yet. So, but I gradually reduced my workload. And from the last March, I think it was more than a year now, and I'm teaching remotely. So I'm teaching online. And so it was, I'm only teaching 4 days a week. And at beginning it was a little bit strange. And sometimes you hear the sounds, depends on the connections, and it was not as good, of course, not as good as in the same room. But later, I think the student made adjustment, I made adjustment, and the situation getting better and better. And for some sense, I think that some student was getting even more concentrated when they know the camera was facing to them. So so far, most of students come out with pretty good result for this last year's studies. So I'm pretty happy. That's what I was thinking about, that after the pandemic over, I might try to mix those two methods together, just twice in the months of the face-to-face, twice the months of remote learning. So see what's going on, and after that.
Yeah. I mean, it's been similar for me. I've been teaching remotely this whole time. And then I also have two young children, so they have been with me at home this whole time. But currently they're at grandparent camp with my parents. So I have a little bit more time to myself, and it's been amazing. Let's see.
Yeah, talk about it. I'm sorry. Yeah, talk about the Starker. Like was sometimes the people afraid of him, and that's for real. And because I remember, in every weekend he's holding this long, like a 4.5 hour long master class, and you have to sign up this, and way before that happened. So people was always signing up until the list was full, and there's no more people can sign up. People come from different part of the world to come for his master class. I remember one of the master class, there were one relative older guy, I think it was like a 30s or 40s, and it was already worked for some places. But anyway, and he was so nervous, obviously, and was obviously was sweating, and he played pretty hard. I think he tried his best, and after that, the hard playing, and I think it's waiting for the comments from Starker. I think Starker did not say anything about his playing, just said, and I think you have serious choice about changing your career, and that was shocking. I mean, and nobody say anything, and was dead quiet in the hall, and the guy was face suddenly turned red. But anyway, and I thought after that as well, and I thought that was honest and very sincere and advice, and to the people which right now currently a lot of it, teachers in America, they always emphasizing a positive side, they give you encouragement. But when a student facing a serious the career choice, I think honest might be the most helpful advice to tell them, and not try to appreciate the students and try to tell them the truth. So this is one of the incidents I cannot forget. It was quite shocking though to me.
Yeah, I remember incidents like that as well. His Saturday master classes, it was always Saturday at noon. And there was a sign-up sheet that would go up on his door a few days before with like time slots, or I guess it was maybe 4 slots, and you would put your name and whatever piece you were playing. And then at the end of the master class, for whoever was visiting, there would sometimes be time for them to come in and play for the master class in front of all of his students and anybody else who was there listening. And it would be like a live audition. And sometimes he would say something and sometimes he wouldn't say anything. And there would be moments where he would say, you know, you should consider another profession. But I don't think it was meant to be cruel. I think that he was just being brutally honest. And I think that, I mean, I remember in my lessons, he talked a little bit about his way of teaching, which was that if he doesn't say anything about it, then it's probably fine. And he's not going to waste time telling you about all the things that you're doing well, because that's a waste of his time and a waste of your time, and you're spending money to go and study with him. He's going to use his time to tell you the places that could be improved on. And so you have to assume that if he's not talking about it, then it's okay. And he was very open about that. Like I remember him saying that. So some people are able to, I guess, handle that in a lesson. And then some people need to be complimented every once in a while. So let's see. I think there are some more questions about, oh, from Larry Wolf. It says, oh, it's more of a comment. It says, I may be a bass player, but my inspiration always came from cellists, especially Janos Starker. And then there's another question to Dad. It says, what was it like years later watching your daughter going off to study with your teacher?
That was wonderful experience. Actually, I did not know and he's going to take Jing as a student or not, because I was working already and left the campus for like 8 years. And Jing, during the time, Jing, you know, progressed pretty fast. She was playing in the you know, some major concertos with the symphony. And I remember before he went to IU campus and he played the Rococo theme variation with 2 different local symphonies. And so we hope and she could have chance, you know, like me, and to study with the world, you know, great cellist. And so my wife had a long trip drive into Bloomington campus for 6.5 hours and sent Jing there to audition. I did not know detail about how you audition, but I heard the result, and he said, I'm going to take this kid as youngest student 25 years. I was so thrilled. And I think we're very fortunate to have a you know, chance, both generations have a chance to study with the great cellist Janos Starker. And I mean, as an artist, and he's has some very special point of his playing, and so straight and so precise. And as a person, he's I think it was very honest, very straightforward personality. And it's just so fortunate that we have this chance to study with him.
Yeah. I think early on, I always thought that he only took me because he knew me from when I was 3 or from the connections with my parents. I don't know. Sometimes I still, in my moments of self-doubt, I still wonder that. I guess we only have a little bit of time left. I wanted to ask you maybe some more of your stories, because I mean, you said that we drove 6.5 hours, but we didn't really talk about where that was from. And you were in Mississippi. We were in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Which is
and after I graduated, yeah, from IU, I talked the audition. I was the 3 places during that summer, in the months of May and offer the opening. And one is Memphis Symphony, associated with the University of Memphis, and also the Tallahassee University of Florida, and also I think it was assistant principal position in Oregon, Portland Symphony. So, and we're facing the sort of the difficulty choice, and so we don't have the money to buy the asking for the flight tickets. It was $700. If you go to Portland, and you were lost chance to go to either those places, and those places I can drive there, and partially by saving money, partially by might be have a better chance to win that audition rather than go to the Portland to give up those two. So I decided to go to the Memphis and the Florida. Then I fortunately, I got to both places win the audition. So I decided to choose the Memphis. So I played with Memphis Symphony for 3 years, and then I got the position of assistant principal for Mississippi Symphony, and a year later I got the position for assistant professor of the Ole Miss, which is the University of Mississippi, where I taught for 10 years.
Did you, I guess I'm wondering if you had any concerns or reservations about moving to the Deep South? Because I guess, I don't know, like I feel like people don't necessarily consider Jackson, Mississippi to be a center of classical music. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. But the place I went through, I think was very important for the American music, though. In the Tennessee, Tupelo, Jackson, Mississippi, those places actually were so important for the American music. You talk about like country music, jazz, rock, blues, and they're all based on those areas. I mean, just amazing on the Mississippi Valley. So yes, economically and by sometimes educationally, it was a little backward, and that's true. But for the music, you can get a lot of native nutritions of your artistic, inspiration from the place. So I still, learn. I think I learned a lot from the instance of the music from Nashville, from Memphis, what I was playing for, and also I went to so many different towns, play with different the symphonies. And we have a chamber group called Oxford Piano Trio, associated with the University of Mississippi, and we play throughout the southeast of the United States, Florida, and Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. So we learned quite a bit about the local cultures, and all particular for the music. And I think it was a very rich soil for American music.
Did you, I guess, why did you decide to leave Mississippi?
It's, human life is all by opportunities, by chance, and it was facing a decision. When people, and it was like a little over 50, and you already pretty much settled down and established in the area. I was the director of youth symphony in the state of Mississippi, and I got a tenor position in the orchestra, and teaching in the college. So in most of the circumstances, you probably want to relax, just to have a life somewhere. But when we got to come to this opportunity, one of the friend that we knew through the music career, and he moved to Los Angeles. So, and there is a chance about they're looking for a music director for a local music school, and which is fairly big, and it was over 1,000 students. Mm-hmm. So they're looking for a director, and they're asking, so are you interested to apply? So we that was we just had a trip and with the youth symphony to Europe. So on the back of the plane, my wife and me, we talk about this and we go to apply or not. And so it was fairly difficult decision actually. And I'm getting a little bit older, and can we afford the big change in our life again? And but we still decided that Jen go there to take a look first. So Jen went there and did some research and come with with me said, and I think this is better opportunity for us, particularly for our children. So I made a trip before that semester over. I made a trip to Los Angeles. I met with the head of the company, whatever they're looking for, the head of directors, and I think that they are pretty happy with their choice. So they asked me to make a decision. So I made decision in Los Angeles right at the time. So we come back, finish our work there in Jackson, and pack on up, left in early of June,
Yeah.
2002. Yeah, and that's
Wow.
where we are. And we since then we stay in Los Angeles.
Nice. I mean, I think we're near the end of our time. I don't know if there were any final questions before we finish. I just wanted to.
Yeah, man, make us just a very short, this closing statement, because and I did not really have chance to talk about those as an Asian, as the discrimination, those kind of things. So right now, my wife Jen and I, we're in the United States over 40 years. It's a long, difficult journey of us, and I did encounter many pain, for instance, and so I have, now, right now people used to call them discrimination in an experience. It was hard. I mean, added tremendous obstacle to us and to pursue the better life or better career development. But I don't want to emphasizing this, but I did want to emphasizing is and I feel there were so many people helped us and understand us, and also particularly when we act very strangely, like earlier I mentioned some incident or doing something very shameful, but they still forgiving us, and those are the majority of American people we're dealing with. Now myself and my family are part of this great nation, so I'm not achieve all of my dreams during my lifetime, but I hope next generation, the generation after, could continue to pursue by better creative and productive part of this wonderful country. And no matter in the United States, it's the one of the country in the world by this kind of attitude, and have this so many people come with different the places and have different religion, have different language, and have different costume, and their outlook are different, their facial look are different, and because this all caused by the isolation for the long time before people don't have the advanced transportation. The people have to live in certain places, so that process, getting in this country and meet together and try to harmonizing each other, this will take time and might be sometimes it take generations. Depends on, sometimes it can be a little quicker, depends on individuals' adaptabilities. But anyway, the harmonization process need all sides. It's not just one side. It need all sides involved. Try to understanding each other, and it's hate and particular violence never be a solution of any to human difficulties or human conflict. So the more hate will let more hate for, and the more violence will let the more violence. So I mean, I mean, right now, yeah, of course, there were still some discriminations or hatred but in my understanding, that probably was an inevitable part of a human, um, human society during this muting process. So I'm very, very optimistic for this nation's future, as a human being for the world in our future.
Yeah, I know when we talked yesterday, you were saying that there's always, the two sides, and it's never that one side is completely wrong and the other side is completely right. It's about being able to see the other perspective.
Yeah, just step in different shoes and think from different aspect, and that you will have a better understanding. Sometimes you're come from a different culture, you behave the way you're talking, and your outlook might make some people uncomfortable. It may, by some circumstance, make some people very uncomfortable. So that take a little time to understanding each other, respect each other. So this is needed time to go through this muting process.
Yeah. So I think there's one final question that we want to have answered, which is, what was one of the most memorable pieces you performed with each other, and when and where was it? I feel like
there's so many, but I tell you what, I think that when Jing was a kid, we played the double concerto by Vivaldi.
yeah.
I think that was the real little. We still have a videotape of it, and she's really tiny. Yeah, it's little, and she was playing the first cello part. I was playing the second cello part. We played it in the Capitol building of the state of Mississippi, and with the Metropolitan Chamber Orchestra. Do you remember that?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the most memorable things, because that was the first time as a father, I played with my kids.
Yeah.
On stage.
I think that was the performance I was going to say too. I think that we've played other things together. I mean, we always like to read duets at home. That was Dad's big thing, to read chamber music at home. And I have two younger sisters, and they both play. My second sister plays cello, and the youngest one plays violin, and my mom obviously the pianist. So we would all try to find combinations of things to play together. And I think it was always Dad's dream that we all be cellists, but that didn't work out.
That were always a happy time. That was the great memories. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I wanted to finish by saying thank you again to Paul Katz and to William, who's facilitating, and thank you to Cello Bello and everyone who's watching and being a part of this. And I'm honored to be able to share part of my dad's story with everybody. And I love you, Dad.
I love you, G. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, thank you, Will. And thank you so much, and Mr. Katz.